Did you know Alan Wake's a writer?
What?
It's something I've heard through the grapevine, but
Once or twice. Once or twice.
I hear this feller,
He's a
he's a
writer.
writer,
Did you know his name is Alan Wake
and that he's a writer.
and that he's a writer?
Whoa! Who
Whoa!
could have seen this coming?
Plot twist.
Wow, I am shocked at this startling development.
Yep.
Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the seasonal anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Allen Ladium. This
Hello.
is episode 359, and we are talking about Alan Wake
The
the
second game.
second Alan Wake, but also the third Alan Wake
I'll
game.
say it's technically the third Alan Wake, but that's neither here nor there.
But yeah, Alan Wake is back. It's been 13 years since that first game came out, and now it's back with more.
I never
This
thought
game,
that this game would ever happen.
I would have agreed with you on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. This game came out on October the 27th of 2023.
Hmm?
So right in time for Halloween.
Spooky, spooky.
So you got that happening for you. It has been reviewed pretty well. It's on the Metacritic. The PC and PS5 versions are at an 89 out of 100, and the Xbox Series X and S version is at a 93 out of 100.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I don't know why I said it like that.
And of course, like the big thing that they did for this game, of course, was they put Alan Wake in Fortnite to celebrate the release of this game.
Right, right. God, that was so weird. We did that together and it was just so strange.
Well, they put him in as a skin, but also, as you were talking about, they did like a full recap, or somewhat recap. It was a very truncated recap of Alan Wake 1 in Fortnite.
Yep.
But they just utilized all of the assets from Alan Wake from the first game and put it into Fortnite, which makes sense because, you can do that stuff because a lot of the creative stuff in Fortnite is based off of just Unreal Engine.
Right.
So it's possible to do all that stuff, but it's still very weird to just walk through these set pieces of Alan Wake 1 with whatever dumb Fortnite character you have.
I mean, you're playing as Vegetable Goku.
It's true, which made it even funnier.
Yeah, it was wild. So yeah, it was just through the environments of Alan Wake 1, just running around.
It was something, all right.
It was wild and good Lord, it was truncated, but it got the point across.
Yeah, I mean, it gives you the very basic
The quick and dirty.
Yeah. But yeah. Let's talk about the development of this here video game.
Okay.
Remedy released Alan Wake in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
They learned from their lessons working on Max Payne and wrote Alan Wake in a way that allows additional story to be told through sequels and additional installments. The team quickly began to discuss sequel ideas after Alan Wake had shipped. The sequel will continue to star Alan Wake as the protagonist, but it would also explore the stories of the supporting characters, including Wake's friend Barry Wheeler and Sheriff Sarah Breaker, both of whom do not appear in this video game.
Nope, they do not. Rip Barry being a character.
He shows up
There are
in text
references.
form. Yeah. A prototype was created to show off the gameplay of Alan Wake 2 when the studio was showing the game to potential publishers, which I guess is a thing because Microsoft originally published this game.
Correct.
The first game.
Correct.
New enemies, new gameplay mechanics such as being able to rewrite reality was showcased in the prototype. Narratively, it would be a direct continuation of Alan Wake. Ultimately, Remedy pitched the project to Alan Wake publisher Microsoft Studios. Microsoft, however, at the time was not interested in a sequel and instead tasked Remedy to create something new. This ultimately became Quantum Break, which was released in 2016. Most of the ideas for Alan Wake 2 were implemented in American Nightmare, a downloadable follow-up for the original Alan Wake game. When Quantum Break was announced, Sam Lake explained that a sequel to Alan Wake had been postponed, and that Alan Wake was not financially successful enough to receive the funding they needed to continue developing the sequel at the time. Director of Communications Thomas Pua stated in April 2019 that Remedy had briefly returned to work on an Alan Wake property about 2 years prior, but the effort did not work out, and the company is presently booked for the next few years between their own new game Control, supporting Smilegate on his game Crossfire X, and another new project. Pua stated that the only limited factor for them to work on an Alan Wake sequel was time, money, and resources. Despite that, Lake continued to be part of a team in Remedy to brainstorm ideas and work on different incarnations for Alan Wake 2, Internally, the project was codenamed Project Big Fish,
Yep.
which represented its importance and significance to Remedy. In the second downloadable content pack for Control, Remedy's next game following Quantum Break, Alan Wake was featured as a character. According to Remedy, Control established the Remedy-connected universe, which is shared by both Control and Alan Wake, and that the next game released by the studio will also be set on this universe.
Nice.
According to Sam Lake, the game will be powered by Remedy's own Northlight engine, which previously powered Quantum Break and Control. Lake also stated that Alan Wake 2 will be a survival horror game as opposed to Alan Wake, which Lake said was an action game with horror elements, though he did not explain the difference between the two. There's a lot of people being like, yo, they made a fantastic survival horror game. And it's like, this isn't really a survival horror game.
No, it's not.
Like, it is in the fact that, like, you have limited resources you have to deal with and all that sort of stuff, but, like, it's not like a super duper horror game in the way that a lot of other survival horror games are. Like, the scariest parts of this game are when they just continuously jump scare you.
Jump scare you, yeah. Like, those are the scary, well, to be fair, I'm a baby, so I get scared by many things, but, like, the worst thing that happens to you if you get caught by something is you just, like, dramatically fall over and have to start over.
Yeah.
Yeah, the jump scare edition, I was like,
real rude.
Yeah, very rude. Especially that old lady.
That old lady was very rude.
That old lady.
Lake further added that players will not need to play the previous games in order to understand Alan Wake 2. All you need to know is he's a writer.
I would disagree with that. That's fine.
Yeah. Remedy confirmed the game would remain in the third-person perspective despite the switch to survival horror, and that both Ika Vili and Matthew Porretta would return to provide the appearance and the voice of Alan, respectively. Other casts include Melanie Liburd as the voice of Saga Anderson, David Harewood as both the live-action and voice of Mr. Dorr, James McCaffrey and Lake as the voice and live-action appearance of Alex Casey, respectively. Alan's story includes a mission known as Initiation 4 or We Sing, which has the player guide Alan through a surreal set while, I don't think this is true, while Alan's psyche, Mr. Dorr, and others sing a musical summarizing Alan's story to that point, with music provided by Poets of the Fall playing as the fictional band the old Gods of Asgard.
Wait, what do you not think is true?
I don't think Mr. Dorr is Alan's psyche.
Oh, it's just written weird. It's saying that Alan's psychic because he's actually singing in the song. Mr. Dorr and others.
Okay. That makes more sense. I was like, this doesn't seem right.
No, because Alan is also singing and dancing.
Yes, he is, for sure. Lake said the idea for the musical sequence was inspired by Alan Wake's concert standoff as well as the Ashtray Maze level in Control, both set to Poets of the Fall's music. Lake also knew that Porretta and Harewood could sing, and Poets of the Fall were able to help with choreography. Frequently through development, some of the developers questioned the need for the musical sequence due to both the strangeness of the sequence in the horror game and the difficulties in pulling it off. However, Lake insisted that the sequence be kept, and that was a very smart idea.
Very smart idea. Thank you, Sam Lake. That entire sequence was beautiful and brilliant, and I loved it.
So good.
It's so good. Oh my God. Like, legit one of my favorite parts of this entire game.
Yeah, 100%.
Anyway, continue.
Overall budget for the game reportedly stands at 70 million euros, with 50 million euros in development and additional 20 million spent on marketing. This is considered to make the game one of the most expensive cultural products in the history of Finland. There you go.
I love it.
There's going to be 2 downloadable contents for this game that are coming out at a later date. One called Night Springs and Lake House, which hopefully will expand upon some story elements that we feel are kind of left on the table at the end of this game.
Yeah, that's true.
So hopefully that's the case.
Hope so.
Of course, the other big thing about this game is that they did a digital-only release because Remedy was like, people buy more digital games.
I'm still salty about that.
Yeah. So there is that. So Alan Wake 2. It is a video game. 2 protagonists.
We got a deuteragonist situation here now.
We sure do.
We got Saga Anderson, who's a cop.
An FBI agent here to investigate some moitas. And Alan Wake's Alan Wake.
He's
you know him. He's a writer. He's kind of a thing.
Man, this game starts off with a naked man.
It does, and then you see his little tiny.
I did not expect to see as much of that man as we did.
So I was going through the settings, like I told you about this, but like I was
Mm-hmm.
going through the settings before I launched the game. I was like, just like blah blah blah. Just let me do the things I want, and then I got to like one point. It's like nudity filter. I was like, that's weird. I was not expecting that. I wonder what that is. And then immediately it's like, here you go. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Let me see this dude butt.
I did not expect to see like muddy, sweaty man butt.
Sure, you sure get that.
You get a lot of that. I
You
mean,
get a lot of that.
you see all of this man.
You do see all of this man
Like, oh, oh my, okay,
in all his bloated fashion,
all of it.
for sure. Yeah. Basically, for like, I would say like 2/3 of this game, the game is split up between Saga and Alan's perspectives, where you can choose to pick or you can pick and choose to play which character you want to play as, and you'll get their perspective stories playing out throughout the story and everything. And then eventually they meet up near the end, and that coalesces with the end of the game and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I like Saga's character a lot.
I do too.
I thought she was a good addition to this the series of being kind of like the character who's like trying to like just look at everything through like a realistic lens, but like everything around her is just the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think that was a good thing to have in this. And then like, you get to see more of like what Alan's been going through and kind of like his descent into like madness, as he's kind of just been stuck in the dark place for 13 years and
Mm-hmm.
trying to find ways to get out, but he's just like going over and over and over and over again and just suffering a lot.
Yeah.
They bring in elements obviously from Control, because there is like, you see early on there's like a dude there's like little elements of like people from the FBC are here,
Mm-hmm.
the Federal Bureau of Control. They're investigating things, and like if you've played the Alan Wake DLC in Control, that's a thing that they have been investigating Bright Falls for a while now. And the end of that DLC, like there's a warning of like, hey, there's an AWE happening in Bright Falls, but it's happening in the future, and this is when this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously those characters are there, and then like there's a more prominent FBC member who shows up later in the game to help you out, deal with everything that's happening. We get fan favorite from Control Ahti showing up, the Finnish janitor who shows up in both Alan and Saga's stories.
Mm-hmm.
He's great because he's just a little weirdo who just
He's
says
so
random
weird.
stuff, and you're just like, you know way more than you're going on about, but sure, buddy. It's real great.
He tried to be helpful. I appreciate him.
He does his best.
He does his best. He says some things I was like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, but thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
It's real good. And yeah, you basically get a lot of like weird things that are happening. Bright Falls is changing, obviously because of the story Alan Wake is trying to write and everything, which is something that happened in the first game, and that is more explained upon here, where like they kind of explain how like whatever's happening in Bright Falls in general in that specific area, like pieces of art will change people's perspectives of what exactly is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use that to your advantage, or it can be used to create mass chaos and destruction if you want as well. A whole lot of fun things are happening in this game.
Yeah. No,
Fun.
I agree with that. Fun in quotation marks and also not in quotation marks.
Yeah.
Because like you got a cult running around.
You do have a cult running around.
You got two brothers doing really fun commercials and running
They're
Coffee
really
World.
good. They're really good.
They're really good. Although that last one made me really sad.
Yeah, that one's sad.
That one made me sad.
Although the premise of it being like, we're going to do a book review, but it's just about the physical book.
Yeah.
Of like, this cover art is very good. It's got some real nice feel to it. These pages are really nice to touch.
I love how soft this cover is.
So good. I'm like, man, that's brilliant.
It's so funny. Like, look at this beautiful picture of the cabin on the back. It's like, holy sh**.
Oh, man.
It was funny, but it still made me sad.
Yeah.
But I loved watching their commercials. It was real good.
Yeah,
Um,
those are really fun.
I was also devastated when I went into Oh Dear and realized that I could not play a song on the jukebox.
It was very funny that like immediately if you go to the jukebox, there's a sign on it being like, "Jukebox is out of order. Look, we get it. You want to play the lime and the coconut song.
Yep.
We can't have that being played every time. Stop it."
Stop.
I thought it was very funny.
This is really funny because they knew what we were gonna go and do,
Yeah.
and I was gonna,
Oh man,
but nope, no, no.
this game's good.
This game is really good. I mean, like, I had a really, really good time figuring out like what the was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I guess we played it the same way, and that we mostly stuck with Saga until it like got locked and it's like, oh, by the way, you should go hang out with Alan for a bit. And then I finished out Alan's part and then got to the like part where everything comes together.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what's the perfect way to play it, but like I was fine with that
I think I mean, there's ways you could just go back and forth between each chapter essentially,
with a
or
mop.
you could do Alan stuff first, and then you could go back to Saga that way, or just,
Hmm.
basically do whatever you want, which I think is fun.
Yeah.
And you can see kind of like how if you did it different ways, like how they would be able to help each other.
Hmm.
Like there's one part in one of the Alan routes where like you eventually see like a specific thing you will need for a Saga chapter later on.
Hmm.
So I thought that was interesting how they were able to kind of like, do that and mishmash them in a way that makes sense, but also like they are disconnected enough that you don't necessarily have to play them sequentially in that kind of order.
Right, right. Which I guess, thinking about it, maybe the fancy mop bucket is because Ati's there
Yeah.
and that man is obviously all over the place. So
Uh
maybe
huh.
maybe he's the link. Because I was trying to figure out, I was like, why the hell is it a mop bucket that gets me to switch between them? Why is this the case? But it literally just clicked with me.
Yep.
Nahone.
Nahone.
Nahone. Wild.
Wild times. Um, Gameplay wise, it's pretty kind of similar to Alan Wake. You flash enemies with your flashlight and then you shoot them.
Hmm.
It probably feels a little bit better. It's like it's more in the line of like how Control felt and all that sort of stuff, where it's the same engine as that, obviously, but um,
But those wolves.
those wolves are very rude.
They're the worst.
They're just very fast and just like hiding a lot. And I'm just like, yeah, wolf, come back here, get over here, stop being a rude dude. Ooh,
Ooh.
got a whole lot of collectibles you need to get.
Yeah, you've got lunch boxes. You've got the nursery rhymes.
Got the manuscript pages as
Mm-mm.
was in the first game as well.
You've got the commercials. You've got the radio bits.
There's the videos in Alan's part as well.
Hmm.
Whole lot of stuff you can collect, which again falls in line with the first game as well. No coffee thermoses to get, although those are just used for save points now.
Right.
Which I thought was a good touch.
That was a good touch.
It's a fun thing. But yeah, let's talk about this story here.
Okay.
Dive into a lot of spoilers per se.
Yeah, this is your point that you should leave if you have not completed the Alan Wake 2.
The Alan Wake. Duh.
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 If you do not know what it's like to be a writer, you should skedaddle for now.
Get out of here.
We'll see you next time. Or you can come back and listen to it after you've completed Alan Wake 2.
Where do you want to start with this story?
I mean, we started with a naked man.
We did start with a naked man who gets murdered.
He's moited. He's like running. He comes out of the water and he's running naked, and then he gets strapped to a table and has his heart cut out.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty up. And then
Pretty
Saga
wild.
comes and like investigates the moida,
Mm-hmm.
finds some manuscript pages.
Be like, well, this is weird. This is talking about us. Real
Mm-hmm.
wild.
Interesting. Hmm.
Hmm.
Anyway, let's go do an autopsy.
And she also finds like people like talking like to her like as if they know her, as if
Yes.
she's been here for like she's come here before. She's like, I've never been here before.
Yeah, like
That's real
Rose very
weird.
early on is like, "Oh man, you haven't been back since that whole situation with your daughter. I'm so sorry about your daughter drowning." And she's like, "Um, huh?"
My daughter's alive. What are you talking about?
Rose is like, "Uh-huh, wink, wink, she's alive. Yep, sure. Are you doing okay?"
But yeah, we go to do an autopsy, and oh god, this bloated man revives and is trying to attack us. Also, the sheriff just vanished into
He,
thin air
he was trying to
after.
give you a page, and he goes, bloop.
Yep, you gotta murder this. You gotta try and fight this revived naked man.
And he's just like running in circles like a shark.
And just murdering people, and you're just like, can you guys like take care of this? We gotta go find this man.
Yeah, yikes.
It's real messed up. But yeah, you're gonna find yourself into some weird stuff where you go into like these I forget what they call them, the
The
overlaps,
overlaps, yeah. So
where you
like
just
you
go
end
into
up
like
going in the tree situation.
yeah, it's like into like weird alternate versions of like the areas you're in where just weird things are happening. This is where you fight the naked man who is a former FBI agent Robert Nightingale who was in the first game,
Hmm.
but now he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
You gotta fight him and beat him up. Um, and it causes all the flooding around the area to kind of like go away around Cauldron Lake, and then oh hey, there's Alan Wake.
Whoa.
He just floated up all around here.
He's
How's it going, buddy?
panicking. He's not having a good time. He's dirty. He's got a
Mm-hmm.
page that says return, but the author's name is scratched out.
Mm-hmm. You get to do an interrogation of him, and like Mr. Scratch is a thing he keeps mentioning, which was the character they introduced, I think, in American.
American Nightmare.
I don't remember if he talks about him in the DLCs for the first game or not. But yeah, American Nightmare is where he's more prominently shows up, which is Alan's like doppelganger who basically wants to cause all sorts of destruction and chaos.
Hmm.
So he's basically mentioned that he's like, oh, I got to make sure like Scratch doesn't come out or anything like that if I'm here. Also, it's been 13 years. Oh God, whoa, boy, yikes,
Yikes.
yikes. And essentially, this is where you get like your split, where like you can continue down Saga's road, or you can go back and play Alan's parts, where he kind of you play through him getting out of the dark place and everything.
Hmm.
Um, but with Saga's route, you eventually are still like trying to investigate this cult, the cult of the tree,
Hmm.
which is they think is doing all these murders and everything.
There's also
But
confusion because it's like, why is Nightingale the only one who like came back?
right, of the murder victims of this cult.
Right.
And then like because she found it in the heart as well, like there was like words on it and everything, and there's also like a piece of the manuscript was in his body.
Hmm.
So it's just like, and there's also been like in the years since Alan Wake 1 happened, there was like another cult that like was doing murder rituals and everything, but they were like heavily inspired by the works of Alan Wake and trying to bring him back.
Hmm. That
So
was
like
the cult of the word.
yeah, so like they're trying to figure out if like there was a connection between those two or not, or what's happening. Um,
One of my favorite jokes about this is that they like a few times say what kind of cult calls themselves a cult.
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I mean it's true. But that comes up several times. What kind of
it's
cult
pretty
calls
good.
itself a cult?
Um, this leads Saga to like another area around Bright Falls, which is water something.
Watery.
Watery, yes. And
Coffee
it's like
World.
that's where Coffee World is, which is the theme park led by the brothers.
Hmm.
Um,
There's a trailer park there.
it's a very like very rural area, very small town type deal.
Hmm.
But again, you go there and like all these people are like, yeah, we know who you are. You lived in this trailer park.
Hmm.
Like, you lived here.
And it's tragic.
And
What happened to your daughter?
yeah, and Saga's just like, this isn't. This definitely did not happen, but I'll just go along with their story, everything. And like eventually you go to like your trailer and like there's like all this stuff like of that you would have and like all the stuff your daughter would have had, and you're just like, this is real weird and everything.
And you also find out that you're related to Odin Ator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is very wild.
I was like, oh, yeah. I'm so excited about this. Like, one, I was excited to see those guys, but also like we're related to them. Perfect.
Because those were the guys that were just like, the weird old men who were in the band in the first game, and they helped you out because like, they were the kind of people who were like, understanding of your situation, know what was going on, and all knew what was happening in like the greater sense of everything type deal. So like to see them show back up, and they're kind of just like, they're more drunk now this time, but like
they're so drunk.
They're very drunk. But like them acting like they're related to you and everything, and you're just like, what is happening? Is this true or whatnot? It's real wild. You eventually find out the cult is being led by these two brothers, who run Coffee World and everything. And you have to fight the two sheriff deputies that helped you out in the very beginning of the game. And you're just like, what is happening with this cult? Why is everything changing? What is going on with all this? It's very confusing.
Aren't they also the ones who listened to Lime and the Coconut? Odin and Tor?
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure they were.
I would believe it.
I'm pretty sure they were the ones that were sitting in Odir, like by the jukebox. I could be wrong, but anyway, doesn't matter that much.
It's possible. But doing this as well, Saga finds the clicker.
Yes.
Which was, of course, the thing that Alan used to try and eliminate the dark presence in the first game. And, is a big, it's a very powerful object of power that the FBC also has been investigating because of what happened in Bright Falls in 2010 and, in other time periods as well. Saga eventually has to go find Odin and Tor again just to like get more information out of like them and to like figure out exactly what she should do with all this sort of stuff. And then Odin or Tor gets dragged into the dark place. Tor gets dragged into the dark place by Cynthia Weaver, who is the old lady who helps you out at the end of Alan Wake 1. But now she's been taken over by the dark presence because she's lost her lamp. She's lost her light.
Also, she was like leading Tor on at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, Odin was too drunk to like exist, and so you had to go in the mind place and talk to him.
And he basically explains like, yeah, this is the whole thing with our family that we are able to like do this sort of thing. Like you weren't just like deducing everything. This is a special power our family has.
Yeah. By the way.
Yeah. Here's this info dump for you. This is why you're able to do this sort of thing.
She's like, oh, I just thought that this was my way of thinking through things, but oh no, apparently this is actually a thing.
So there's that, and then you have to get him out of there, and you get to have a nice heart-to-heart with your grandpa, who also explains like, yeah, through his terms, through him, he's like, your mother used to live here, and then she left because like I had a spat with your father and everything, and that caused her to kind of disassociate herself with me and everything. Like, understandable. She had every right to do that and all that sort of stuff. Like, it was my fault, but that's why she never told you about us or anything, and kept all that stuff secret and all that sort of stuff. And also was like, if she told you about or if you told her about the mine place, she would be like, oh, funny, haha, even though she could totally do the same thing type of deal. But you also don't learn a lot about Saga's father because they just talk about how like he just randomly disappeared at one point, and that's it.
Yeah.
So that's all left in the air, a mystery. You also learn from Rose, who's working at this nursing home as well, that where Odin and Tor are staying, is that like she's been getting weird messages from Alan Wake, and she's been trying to help the so-called hero, and she's the one like leaving like the lunch boxes throughout all the areas because that was all her gear to fight the Taken if she needed to. And then she's like, she basically changed that into leaving gear for the hero whenever they come and all that sort of stuff.
I'm telling you my theory on that. I mentioned it earlier. Like, I'm sticking to that theory.
It would make sense with how he describes it later on as well. He's like, oh.
Yeah, he doesn't remember doing it. Like, he's like, I definitely didn't do any of what you're saying that I did.
Mm-hmm.
But like, who else would want to direct things like that? And who else would know like which Alan content to like target so that
Yeah.
someone would help out? Like
Yeah.
it has to be. I mean, I guess I could just say it. I think it's Alice, but
Yeah. We'll get
um,
into some of that when we talk about the Allen route for sure.
yeah.
But yeah, after all that, Saga needs to get back to Bright Falls.
Wait. Before we move on again, I just want to say once again, that old lady.
She's very rude.
She kept jump scaring me.
Brah,
She jump scares
brah,
more than anybody.
brah.
I was so mad.
It's very mean.
Ah. Anyway.
Yeah, you have to get back to Bright Falls because you're going to get the clicker to Alan because he's being held captive in the jail because bad things happened while you were away. Where, the cult attacked the lodge that you were staying at and attacked your partner Casey and Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And then bad things happened when Alan blacked out.
Yep.
And then eventually the FBC comes in and captures Alan. Casey got messed up. And you have to go back to the sheriff's office to figure out exactly what's happening. And you get there and like the brothers are in jail and then they're like, you do not give him the clicker. Like, that is a bad idea. Do not give Alan the clicker. And you go to give him the clicker, but then like Alan starts acting real funky and you realize like, oh, this is not Alan Wake. This is Mr. Scratch.
Mr. Scratch.
And you get to have a boss fight with Mr. Scratch in the parking lot of the sheriff's office.
With lights.
With lights and everything. And then after all that happens, one of the brothers dies.
Which is why that
Mr.
commercial
Scratch,
is so sad.
Yeah. Mr. Scratch just like murders him immediately.
Yeah, he gets obliterated.
And then like you have this like, you basically meet everyone back up and like you talk with the one brother. He's like, yeah, the cult was basically us getting the town together to fight to Taken, protect everyone from like, those things happening. And if anyone came out of the lake, we were going to take care of them and get them out of here.
We were trying to make sure that they didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah. So like, that's what their whole deal was. And Saga's kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, so you weren't just like weird murderers. I understand what you were doing here. Gotcha.
Cool motive, still kind of murder?
Still kind of, but less
weird. Murder.
Less weird cold murder.
Yeah. Although like seeing him over in that corner like with his brother's body, I was like, oh, this is so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was really regretful of what happened there. And I think they're also played by the same guy, so that's kind of weird.
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me.
I think they are. I really do. I could be wrong.
It would add to the cheesiness of it.
It absolutely would. I mean, I can look it up, but I'm pretty sure that they were played by the same guy.
You also have to go make a plan up with Casey and Agent Estevez of the FBC. Casey and Estevez also just like bond over like, yeah, my wife didn't like my job either. My wife didn't either.
My
wife. Type deal. So that's what they just have. And then this leads you to like kind of like they were like, hey, this is the point of no return. You should you want to keep going or switch things up. This is where we switch things up to Alan, where you get to learn about his descent through the dark place and going on talk show constantly.
Yep.
Yeah, the Mr. Doors segments were really funny because it's like, here's just a late night talk show and Alan Wake has no idea why he's on this talk show.
And they just keep getting weirder and weirder. And yes, they are played by the same guy.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. So they're both the same dude. That's funny.
But yeah, Alan basically is trying to write a new novel, which is, I think it starts with like an I.
It does start with an I.
I want to say Initiation, but that doesn't sound right. But regardless, he's trying to write a new novel to get him out of the dark place.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just trying to figure all that out. He keeps going to like these murder sites to get inspiration and everything, and finds out about the cult of the word and all that sort of stuff. And just keeps having to go to like each different murder site. Like one of them is like just you're in the subways and like it's a bunch of people got caught on fire or firebombed essentially in a friggin' subway car, and like that was messed up.
It was real messed up, and it is initiation.
Aha, initiation.
Yeah, the firebomb thing was real messed up.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, these are crispy bodies I gotta walk
Those
by.
are some crispy bodies for sure.
And then they kept falling apart as I was walking by. I was like, no, you stay intact and away from me.
Don't like that.
Nope.
You also eventually find Thomas Zane down there, who looks real wild.
Yeah.
Just doing drugs in a hotel.
As you do.
And supposedly you wrote a novel with Thomas Zane on drugs.
Yeah.
But he's also like paranoid and trying to like not be found.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because there's a scene in that first initial meeting with him in the hotel room where like the TV turns on and you see two different characters are like hello? And that is Dr. Darling and Jesse from Control.
Oh, is that the moment that you're like, oh,
Yes.
I know what's okay, because I didn't know what that was.
So that's them trying to find Thomas Zane. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Which, in this one at least, Thomas Zane is also the same actor as Alan Wake, like physical actor. The voice is different, I think, but
yeah, they looked very similar, which makes sense.
And he even calls it out at one point, like, you look a lot like me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Real metatextual there.
Real meta.
We had to go through this like hotel room or hotel, and like eventually you find this murder that gives you more information and everything. We get the musical at one point, which is just fantastic, as we mentioned earlier.
Legit.
What a scene.
Oh my God. It's like 20 minutes of you walking through this like rock opera, and it's beautiful. Like the song's good. It's so wild to see Alan in his like khakis doing like choreography. Like the lighting is great. Even the scenes where you have to fight enemies, like it works.
Uh-huh.
They got me at one point because they're like, pause for the guitar solo. I was like, oh yeah, I'll pause for guitar solo. And it's like enemies everywhere. No, what are you doing?
So good.
You mentioned that like you'd gotten something that was just like amazing.
Yeah, because I was like playing it while we were chit-chatting, and I was playing through it, and I just got to that part and I was like, oh my God.
And then I got to it and
you had the same reaction.
I was like, this is amazing. I didn't want it to end.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good.
Oh man.
God, all the dancing was so funny.
It's really good. There's also one of the talk show segments where they have, because like the whole thing with like Saga's partner being Alex Casey is the titular protagonist in all the Alan Wake novels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like jokes about how Casey keeps getting goofed upon about like, oh, you're the guy from the novels, right? And he keeps showing up in the Dark Place and in Alan's parts as well. But there's a talk show segment where they're like talking about, oh, they're making movies based on these novels and everything.
You're the actor.
And of course, here's the actor playing Alex Casey, Sam Lake, everyone. It's just Sam Lake there. That they're like, he just does the Max Payne face at one point as well, which I thought was very funny.
It was so good. God, it was funny.
Oh man, it was real good.
Like those sequences, the talk show and the music sequences were some of my favorite parts of these games.
Yeah, it's real good.
Real good, and a lot of like weird meta stuff.
Yep, for sure.
Love it.
And then like one of the last things you do in the Dark Place as well is like you go to this like theater where there's supposed to be like this hidden Thomas Zane film that never showed up, that was never supposed to be like released or anything.
Nightless Night is the name
and
of
it has like this weird magical properties to it. And like Casey's in the film and he doesn't understand why and all that sort of stuff, and there's just a whole like weirdness to the whole film and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You got to like figure out how to add that to the novel and all that sort of stuff. And then one of the other things that happens here is like one of the last times you go there and you do the talk show part, you just talk to Mr. Dorr, who the sheriff who gets disappeared in the beginning of the game is in the dark place with Alan, and you keep meeting up with him, and he's trying to find Mr. Dorr as well, because like I think he heard about like an investigation trying to find this dude,
And
and
he keeps having dreams about him.
he keeps having dreams about him because he has supernatural abilities, not really abilities, but like premonitions, I guess you could say, about, and like I mean that's gonna happen when you live in Bright Falls, let's say. But he's been trying to find him and keeps like every time you meet him, he keeps having like more and more information about him and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, he just keeps adding to the whiteboard like a conspiracy theory type thing.
Yeah. But the last time you meet up with him, you just had to have this chit chat with him, with Mr. Dorr, and basically he's like, "Look, you need to get out of here, but like if you don't, we're going to fight at some point because you took something from me." And like that's the last time you see him, and it's not really followed up upon.
Nope, it is not.
Which was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't really get to know who he is, or like why, you know, the sheriff was trying to find him really, or like what exactly he, you know, Alan presumably took from him and all that sort of stuff.
I agree with your theory on who he is. I don't know if it's actually going to be the case or not, but I agree with it.
So my theory is that this is Saga's dad. It makes the most sense because, like, you know, they talk about how he disappeared in around the Bright Falls area at some point.
And that he got hit by lightning specifically, which is also something that happened to Tor, who is also Saga's family, even though, like, obviously not related in the same sense. It's a wild coincidence.
And it's the idea that, like, Alan had taken something from him, and, like, you know, the fact that he had been writing Saga into the story and, like, took her daughter away from her. And I guess this guy would presumably know that because, like, you know, he's been running into Alan in the dark place and, like, talking about the novel he'd been writing and all that sort of stuff. So he would presumably know these things that are happening. So he probably would not be too happy with Alan for doing that sort of stuff. So there is that. But yeah, none of that is really explained or expanded upon in this game itself. Like, you know, I will give them the benefit of the doubt for now because, like, they have the 2 DLCs that are coming out, and they did a lot of, like, post-game stuff with Alan Wake 1 where they expanded upon the story and kind of added to it to, you know, make a more satisfying conclusion in the long run. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt for now. If they don't resolve any of this stuff, it's going to be very weird, especially with, like, how the end of the game is as well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I also just want the sheriff to get out of there.
Yeah.
I'm worried about him.
Get out of there, buddy.
He's just humming, helping you out, leaving you boxes and stuff, and telling you where things are on the map, and
making sure you haven't forgot him.
I feel so bad for him, but, like, I asked you at one point, I don't know if you ever answered or knew the answer, but he mentioned something about a redheaded woman. Do you know who that is?
Like, what was the context of him talking about it?
It's just on the board. He's talking about a redheaded woman. Well, on his crazy whiteboard.
I think Jesse in Control is redheaded.
Okay.
Maybe.
So maybe that's related.
So maybe he's, like, talking about her?
Maybe.
That's the only thing I could think of off the top of my head.
Because I couldn't think of a redheaded person in Alan Wake. And I was like, who the hell is this?
But yeah, eventually you also learn that Alan's been looping in the dark place. Where he's, like, trying to write this novel and then, like, can't do it and then forgets all his memories. That's why people are like, hey, do you remember me? Do you got your memories? And anytime, like, they talk to him, like, after the first time, they're like, hey, do you know what's happening? Type deal. So there's that. And then the other big thing that he's dealing with in the dark place is that after he does all these murder site investigations, the building where he used to live will show up, and he gets to go in there and see these videos from Alice, who is basically taking it upon herself in the time that, you know, since Alan's disappearance and everything, has done this whole photo gallery type deal she calls the dark place, and she's also talking about how she's being haunted by Alan and all that sort of stuff, and taking all these, like, more dark and depressing photos, and that's going to be the basis of her gallery of, like, you know, hey, life isn't all sunshine and rainbows type deal. And you see these videos of her, like, describing everything and talking about the exhibit and everything, and, like, they just keep getting more, like, more dark and depressing as you keep progressing through the game and everything, and then it eventually leads to like her talking about how like she just can't handle things anymore, and then like there's a video at the end where you just see her just walking off a cliff.
Yep.
You're just like, what the heck? And Alan's like, oh god, she's dead. Oh no, what am I doing all this for? Oh god. It's real messed up. And then like there's a scene early on where you see like presumably Mr. Scratch come in and shoot Alan in the head when he's trying to write.
Mm-hmm.
But then you find out later on that it's Alan himself who does that. And then that's where he kind of comes to the realization like, Mr. Scratch isn't a doppelganger. Mr. Scratch is me.
He's me.
And that's not good.
Nope.
Rut-row.
Rut-row.
But yeah, eventually, you know, this leads into how he gets out and everything, and shows up in the present time with Saga and all that sort of stuff. And then, they do this whole as we get back to the convalescence of the two characters. Saga and Casey and Estevez are going, and along with Odin and Tor, are going to perform this ritual thing to try and get Alan out of the dark place at Cauldron Lake.
Get a cool new song from the boys.
We get a new song from the boys, and they fight Mr. Scratch, who they presumably put him into a this big container that the FBC uses to contain, you know, entities like this. But then he breaks out and
yeets Saga into the lake.
So she gets into the dark place. And they don't get Alan out because they're like, what happened? And then it's like they get to the realization, oh, Alan and Scratch are the same person, so he's been here the whole time.
Yeah, he came out earlier. It just it worked. It worked at a different time.
Yes. And then basically Mr. Scratch takes over Casey, and then he takes the clicker, and then, like as you said, he eats Saga into the dark place. And then basically Alan is kind of just like himself now again. So he has to go and take care of, or try and get the clicker back, and he goes into the new formed ending of Return, which is the next novel he's supposed to be written, and the one he has like the title manuscript page of when he gets out of the lake originally. So he needs to go find out what the ending of that is, because he doesn't know, and then try and rewrite it to make it better, essentially. So he goes off to do that.
Which this is where you get the commercial of the book club review.
Yes.
But yeah, the one brother keeps like saying like, oh hey, you know, this is what I think about it. What do you think? And then it just looks over to the blank spot where his brother would be, and it's just like, oh no.
And he's just like, he just looks back. It cuts back to him, and he's like real sad. He's like, oh.
Oh, that happens a few times. But yeah, they review the actual physical book. But yeah, Deerfest is happening, and also it's a Welcome Back Alan Wake Festival, and you got to find the return.
Everyone really wants that book. But yeah, eventually you have to lead yourself to what used to be the nursing home, but it's like now supposedly Alan Wake's home. And Ahti's there. He's like, here you go. Here's your writing room.
I'll let you in.
Yeah, here you go.
And it had a swirly on it, and both of the, like in this room and in the
apartment.
The apartment, yeah.
But yeah, it's essentially the writing room from the dark place, and he goes and gets to work, and then Saga basically has to fight herself out of the dark place, because like in her mind place, like it's all messed up, and like she keeps like having all these negative emotions try and like bring her down and be like, oh, it's your fault your daughter died, it's your fault Casey got hurt, it's your fault this investigation's all awry, you're terrible at this, terrible at this, terrible at this. And eventually she's like fights off all of those and like is able to like have like
break out of it
and have like more like realistic thoughts about what exactly was happening and everything, and figure everything out, and is able to break free from that. And she ends up in the dark place of Alan, where it's, you know, the little area of New York. She gets a call from some random lady and is like, hey, you're gonna need these items that are in the plaza by the statue. You need them, and then you gotta go help Alan.
Random lady quotation marks.
Yes, random lady quotation marks. And then you have to fight through the dark place, and eventually you find these photos. Which one photo is of the clicker? The other is of a light bullet, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's able to. She gets back there. She finds. And they also her and Alan have been like talking through the mind place of like, how do we write this ending, while also keeping the horror motif and everything. And they're like, one of the heroes has to basically sacrifice themselves because this is how a horror story ends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're both the heroes here, but like one of us is. We can't all make it out of this, but they want to save everyone from this story, essentially. So Alan's basically like, I will sacrifice myself.
But
To,
Saga's also not willing to give up on Casey and Logan, her daughter.
yes, that's like her main thing. Is like, no, those two have to survive. And he's like, all right, yeah, totally. I understand.
He's like,
I
whatever else you
gotcha.
do, I don't care. But those two, they got to be okay.
Yeah. So basically, she comes back and she goes into this version of the dark place that's in the reality, or I guess the changed reality of Bright Falls, and she finds Alan. They use the clicker when he has finished the story and everything, and then she shoots him with the light bullet to basically, well, she shoots him after Casey shows up, and then Alan welcomes back Scratch inside of him,
Mm-hmm.
and then she shoots him to basically take out Mr. Scratch for good, and also Alan.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the end of the game gets weird because like Saga and Casey are there, and Casey's like, "Oh, I'm okay, I guess now." She goes to try and call Logan her daughter, and then it just dial tones.
Yep.
And we don't get an explanation. We don't get anything else from Saga for the rest of the end of the game.
Nope. So we don't know if it worked.
Yeah, again, presumably we will find this out in the DLCs, hopefully.
Hopefully.
But that's all for now. We have a post-credit scene, I think a mid and post-credit scene, where basically there's another recording, and it's of Alice, and she's like, all right, here's the real deal what happened. I'm not dead. At some point, I regained my memories. I went to the Federal Bureau of Control and basically told them everything that was happening with Alan and like what happened, my experience in Bright Falls, which there are pieces of or collectibles in Control where you find, hey, Alice Wake came to the FBC and we interviewed her about her experience in Bright Falls. So this is all true.
Yes.
And essentially she talks about that, and she came up with this plan to trick Alan into thinking she committed suicide so he could get out of the dark place. And essentially talking about how he can only escape these loops by ascending out of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alan wakes up and from the gunshot wound, and it goes, it's not a loop, it's a spiral. And that's the end of the game.
Which is the symbol that's been on the writing doors. And
also a callback to, you know, the thing he says at the end of the first game of it's not a lake, it's an ocean.
Correct.
So I do think your idea of Alice being the one who tells Rose about all this stuff and like was been leaving notes for her subtly and everything, because like Rose talks to Alan at one point after
when
he
comes
comes back
to the nursing home,
and she's like, oh my gosh, you're back, you've been leaving me all these messages. And he's like, I definitely have not been leaving you messages, I don't know what you're talking about, but thanks, I guess.
She's like, wink wink, sure.
So I think Alice being the one who would do that makes sense, especially because like she would know who Rose is.
Right. And like she was talking about how like on the Alan Wake fan sites and things, like there were comments left, and like, yeah, that would be an interesting place to leave things, but also like her feeding Rose, who she knows is a fan, like it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Alice has been orchestrating a lot behind the scenes this whole time.
Yep.
Because like that was obviously her calling Saga.
Yeah.
So she's really trying to free him, and it makes sense that like one of the things that she would do is try and help the hero, the Rose.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm 100% convinced that that's who that is. That's who's
it makes
doing
sense.
That. Because we know it's not Alan. Alan's
he's been too busy doing other things.
Yeah, he's been too
got
busy
a story
doing
to write.
rock operas and you know. But yeah, so Alice has been trying to rescue him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fair.
Yeah. It is a weird ending though. It's just like the saga stuff just being left completely up in the air.
Yeah.
That was like as soon as I finished, I was like, wait, that's all they're gonna do with her? That's weird. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I hopefully we will get more answers from the DLCs that come out. If not, that's gonna be a real big bummer.
I hope we get some. I mean, we have to get something, right?
Hopefully.
There's no way we don't. I mean, like, you have to give some kind of conclusion, right?
I presumably, like I said, I would give them the benefit of the doubt here
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah.
So, there's that. But yeah.
Give me the soundtrack with the what is it? Herald of Darkness is the name of the song, I think.
If you want the rock opera.
I need the rock opera. Like, I've got all the other songs from it, but like, where is that? Give me that. Gib.
Gib.
Gib. I mean, I saw that there's the vinyl coming out, but haven't pulled the trigger on that one yet. I've been thinking about it. I've had it on my phone the whole time. Like, do I do this? Do I do this?
But yeah, that's Alan Wake 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun return to a cheesy kind of game that I was not expecting a full blown sequel to be made of. It's interesting, I think, as well, because like you can look at the first game as kind of like a callback to like Twilight Zone and all that sort of stuff, while like this game is more in line with like a prestige television drama,
Right.
and like it's interesting because you can see kind of like just the differences between how like television shows have changed in the last 13 years, and it's kind of reflected in this in an interesting way. But yeah, it's really cool to see this. I also was like, again, I'm just gonna be a real big fan of like how they are implementing like Control and like other parts of Remedy games into all their games now, essentially.
There's a cinematic universe.
Yeah, and it makes sense with like all the weird stuff they do in these games. So like to just blend them together and make them like
Have a continuity.
And just have like just ways where you can see fun things and especially fun Easter eggs between the two games as well. I'm all for that. It's real fun.
I never thought we were gonna get this game, and I'm so glad we did.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
It had some issues, but like I had a great time playing this game.
Same.
Even though I got scared. That lady.
It's real rude.
Real rude.
But yeah, Alan Wake 2. It is a thing.
It is a thing. It is a video game that we played in the year 2023.
It is a video game about a writer and an FBI agent.
Yep.
So there's that. Eventually, we'll probably come back together and talk about the DLCs that they put out. They've just said, hey, we're doing them. There's been no like release date or anything like that. So presumably those will be next year at some point.
That's what I'm assuming.
But hopefully we get some answers to the questions that we are left with at the end of this game.
I hope so.
Hope so. But that's going to do it for us this week.
Hmm?
So if you'd like more from us, head on over to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sec.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Ann Ladium, go to annladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. Follow us on Blue Sky at seasonalanimecheckup.com. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, A Critical Analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, and Hot Tubs and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And you can support us on Patreon. There we go. That's what I was looking for. I lost my words there. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast early, and a whole wealth of bonus content as well. Next week, we'll talk about something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Who knows?